So, hey everyone, we're continuing our Parables of Jesus series, and this week we're going to look at a parable, but we're going to look at it more through how to interpret a parable rather than looking at the actual parable. Although, don't worry, we will get into the meaning of the parable through this, but we're going to look at the parable of the persistent friend. In Luke 11:5-8, it says, "And he said to them, 'Which of you shall have a friend, and go to him at midnight and say to him, Friend, lend me 3 loaves. For a friend of mine has come to me on this journey, and I have nothing to set before him. And he will answer from within and say, Do not trouble me, the door is now shut, and my children are with me in bed. I cannot rise and give to you. I say to you, though he will not rise and give to him because he is his friend, yet because of his persistence, he will rise and give him as many as he needs.'" So in this parable, I think just about everybody agrees this is not like the most complex parable in the world, and this isn't one that people really debate a lot over. Most people agree that the friend in need represents us asking God for something, and the neighbor that has to get up and give the bread represents God. And just about everybody agrees that this parable means that we should be persistent in asking, that even when our prayers aren't immediately answered, we shouldn't give up. We should continue to ask and to ask and to ask until God hears or until God answers our prayer. But why do we interpret it this way? Because in this parable, it makes it look like God is this, like the neighbor doesn't want to get up. It's inconvenient. He's asleep. He first tells him, no, I don't want to do it. And then Jesus ends this saying, even though he won't give to him because he's his friend, yet because he doesn't give up, because of his persistence, he will eventually rise and give him as much as he needs. Does that mean, that God isn't going to give us anything just because he loves us, but rather, because we become annoying to him? We're the squeaky wheel that gets the grease. Well, no one interprets the parable as saying that. And the answer to that is the same way we need to look at all parables. The problem is we look at this parable correctly, but we often don't look at other parables correctly. And the answer is this: when you look at why Jesus gave a parable, you have to kind of look at the shock value. What were the people immediately hearing? What's the ultimate point that Jesus is getting across? You see, a parable is just a story to make a point. Not everything in the parable relates to something specific spiritually. Just because, like in here it talks about that the neighbor is asleep. Well, we have verses that say God neither sleeps nor slumbers. This says that he won't rise and give to him because he's his friend. Yet we know that Jesus said that God gives freely because of his love. And so what we have to look at is the things that don't contradict other scriptures. When pure doctrine is given somewhere else, like God is love, God loves us, God gives to his children because he loves them, we don't want to then assign something contradictory to a parable. Somehow we instinctively know that about this one, but then in other parables, we sometimes don't apply that same logic or that same interpretation principle. The other thing about this is that, it would be easy to take this parable to mean something that it's not, but I guess maybe because it's preached on a lot, we all kind of understand, yes, we need to be persistent in our praying. And that is a really good point, that we do need to be persistent, because many times we will pray and ask God for something, and then when we don't get the answer that we want, we stop praying and we go on to something else, or we just assume that that's a no. Here Jesus is saying, continue to pray, because we simply don't know what the blocks are. We simply don't understand maybe God's timing or what's going on spiritually, or is there some other reason, for the delay. But the point is that we should be persistent through the delay. Kind of like when Daniel was praying for 3 weeks, and then finally Michael got there, the archangel got there and said, hey, we've been trying to answer your prayer for 3 weeks, but I've been in this battle with the prince of Persia, this, demonic spirit that's been delaying us. So anyways, the whole point that I wanted to bring up with this parable, and the reason I chose this parable for today, was to say, let's look at the way that we actually interpret parables. This is kind of a Bible study lesson, I guess, in that the main thing that you want to look at with parables is not trying to match every little thing up. It's the big picture, the overall. What was the point Jesus was trying to make. And if you read this parable and you read it in context with so many of the other things that he was saying around it, you get things like ask and keep asking, knock, seek, find, all those things. And it's Jesus is talking a lot about our persistence in getting with God. It's about prayer. There's, the Lord's Prayer is kind of similarly, has some similar statements around it. So what we want to do is just find out what is the main point Jesus was trying to make from the parable. What was kind of the shock factor? These parables that Jesus told, for us, they're common. But for the people at the time, it's kind of the first time that they would have ever heard these points being made. And so to them, this was like, whoa, shocking. The Good Samaritan, shocking that a Samaritan would have been the one to help, or, just different things like that. So what we want to do is look at kind of with parables, you're looking at what was the shocking big picture of the parable, and just leave it at that. That's the main point that Jesus is trying to get across. We're not going to match up everything to something spiritually. So, while this might not be new revelatory information for you from this parable of being persistent with God, I hope that you got a little bit of something out of this in the way that we look at parables overall. If you like our teaching, check us out on rebornjacks.com, or check our YouTube channel out, where our YouTube handle is Reborn Church Jacks. And that's it. I will see you next week. Bye.